Welcome back.
We are episode 5.
Episode 5.
I'm doing it, guys. Woo! I'm doing it.
Episode 5 of What We Have Learned. Unless you look at our Facebook page, it's still What Have We Learned?
And it may never change.
It might never change. And that's okay.
Maybe that will be our gimmick, is our Facebook page.
Our
is
title's a different name than our Facebook page. Hey, if you haven't already, you should subscribe to our YouTube channel. And that's how you're listening to this, obviously. But go ahead and subscribe. And then you'll always know when we upload. Push that
thumbs up button.
Yeah, that notification bell.
Yeah.
And you'll always know when we upload new stuff. So what are we talking about today, Randy?
Well, today is the Wizard of Oz. I think it's the Wonderful Wizard of Oz.
The Wonderful Wizard of Oz.
We were looking it up to make sure we were right, and the internet trying to tell us that it's episode 30, but on the countertop, I'm pretty sure Bob says 27.
Right, so they count some of the other ones that weren't technically episodes. So release-wise, this was the 30th release, I guess, but in shows.
I would say maybe 27th countertop.
Maybe.
That's how that goes.
So October 6, 2007 was when this one came out. And it was the last show before the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything movie.
Okay. I was trying to place that in the lineup, and I was thinking graphics are really good in this one.
Yeah.
So I was trying to think.
So the movie was January 2008.
Yeah.
So it was a few months later. But then the next show was July 2008. So nearly, not quite a year. But, you know, obviously you do a big old movie like that.
Yeah.
It's going to take some time to recover.
Oh, I bet that was wild in their schedules. And they have kind of bare minimum people in this one too, which might be why, because they were just like, they were probably working both at the same time.
Probably. So this was the first, a couple of little things about this episode. So this was the first episode. Well, we were talking about this earlier. Some of them are stupid. Like one of them is this was the last episode to be dubbed in Spanish despite it not being released. Whatever that means. Ooh. So all our Spanish listeners,
we're sorry.
We're sorry. But there's like a couple different like small things, like the way QWERTY turns on is a new thing in this one. The first time it was used, they did say this was kind of cool though. They said this was an first episode where they used a child from the Make-A-Wish Foundation to voice a character. It doesn't say which character, but they said that they did have a Make-A-Wish person voice one of the characters, unless it might have been one of the P's maybe. So a couple little like, you know, Wizard of Oz, because that's what it's based off, is Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
They've got Tudu, the pig.
Yeah.
Instead of Toto. Follow the Yellow McToad.
Yes.
I like the Yellow McToad. That was
oh, my gosh. They did a really good job. Everything was to mimic kind of in phonetics. So in the lions and tigers and bears, oh my, it's Ohioans and fifers and mares.
So good. Yeah, so this was a really good episode. Obviously, you know, when did Wizard of Oz? It was like 30s?
Yeah, like 40s.
40s maybe?
Probably
I don't know. We should have looked that up, but a long time ago. Also, there's the spoof where Mary Poppins shows up.
The wind, it goes, oh, a change in the wind. And then she flies in with her little umbrella and she goes, oh, this is in London, isn't it? Sorry. And like flies off. So it says August 25th, 1939, the Wizard of Oz was the release date. 1939.
So probably nobody's alive from that.
Probably not. I know especially considering some people died in production.
Yeah,
so.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry. That's rude to laugh at dead people. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I wasn't laughing at dead people.
We're laughing with them.
With them, I guess.
They're laughing now, hopefully.
My bad. No, this one was pretty fun because I don't know when they do the Lord of the Beans, but that one was like, we'll have to do an episode on that because that is hilarious.
Oh,
that's
a good
pretty
one.
much just like straight across the board. Like they pretty much just like plagiarized that one.
Well, we're getting ahead, but talking about the Lord of the Rings one.
Yeah.
There's a part where like at the very beginning when they show up and they just start laughing uncontrollably to be like the beginning of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And they just can't quit laughing.
And you're like, oh, this is how this is going to go. But in the Wizard of Oz one, this one was really fun because it's definitely super obvious that it's the Wizard of Oz.
Right.
But it does, I feel like there wasn't anything like super straight across the board like that. where you were kind of like, it seemed kind of like an original telling of like something old.
Yeah.
And I really liked that a lot.
Yeah, so they did a really good job because sometimes, well, you know, you want to do a spoof or a
tribute or a parody
to one of those old movies, but they did a really good job with this one and with the Lord of the Beans. With like they did it real. The writers, props to writers,
yes,
for making it where you knew it was Wizard of Oz, but also you knew it was a Bible story.
Yes,
because
this one is
when you watch this Wizard of Oz, you're not like, oh, that reminds me of the Prodigal Son story.
No, right, exactly, and that's what I thought was really fun about this one, because you're like, oh, I see it.
Yeah, but
you never would have saw it like if they didn't tell you to see it, and it's kind of cool. I think they're really good at that. They pick a theme and they like just hone in tight. Yeah.
So they do good with that one. So Lord of the Beans, I just looked it up, was the 25th episode. So this was 5 before this. This was 2005.
Okay.
I also like how they have like they work on like a floss farm or whatever. That's pretty cool.
Did you the sign say original mint and cinnamon? But they look kind of like these weird like onion, like lettuce, onion something.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so great. Farmer O'Gills.
See,
and that's what they do. So like Dorothy is Dorothy Gale.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if it'd be called like the Gale Farm. It never really says. But so they made them Farmer O'Gill. And then like Junior's character is named Darby.
Darby instead of Dorothy.
Yeah, and they have a lot of things like that. Very like alliteration or like phonetically it matches like the Yellow McToad. Yeah. It's so great.
So good. So good.
Great.
So obviously, you know, they have the lion and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow, just like in Wizard of Oz. But I do. That is one thing I do like about how they had them in the beginning of being like the workers in the dad's field or whatever.
Yeah, and they did a really good job with making them being kind of the same and different. Like in the Wizard of Oz, their personalities kind of matched that of the lion and the Tin Man and stuff, like the workers.
Yeah.
And they did that kind of good too. They just kind of, I don't know, they just seemed to kind of make them. What was really funny is they say, I've got a cousin in Kansas. Like they all keep saying that.
Yeah.
But like Paul Grape's the lion. So does Paul Grape? I don't think he ever says it, thank goodness. But how funny would they be if I had a cousin in Kansas?
Cousin lion.
But it's like
native
a person.
to Kansas. I also like how when he says something about like Paul Grape's talking to Junior and he's talking about wanting to go over the rainbow, and then he's like has this beautiful moment with the music, and then he cuts him off like, a rainbow? It's just water droplets reflected by sunlight.
Yeah, so they start, it sounds like he's about to sing it, like they chord that up.
Yeah.
And then he goes,
yeah.
You mean, that's just like refracting
how could you go over the rainbow?
What? No, I want to go beyond the barn. And then he sings the Beyond the Barn.
Beyond the Barn.
Which, they're so cute. And that's the thing is, Veggie Tales has way of like making the jokes for you. Right? And it's kind of like, because in the back, it's kind of like whenever I started watching like Dora and Blue's Clues and things like this, where they ask you the question and you say no because you feel spiteful that day.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you see a clue?
No.
Or it's like, do you, where do we go to next? And then like you yell the other part of the map. And but I think that's one thing about Veggie Tales is really funny. It's almost like they're making that joke for you.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't go over a rainbow. Like their sense of humor is like right on that. It's like the borderline sarcastic,
right?
But like still sweet.
Yeah.
And so they do I feel like in this movie is cram full of that.
All of it.
And it's so great
through the whole thing. And so that's part of the reason why we chose this one to do. But yeah, there's just, you know, all the characters, like we said, line up with their biblical counterparts. Darby being the prodigal son, Farmer O'Gill being the dad. And we kind of talked about, you know, the things that's not in the show is the other brother.
Yeah, they didn't really set up an older brother. They just kind of which we can talk about this more later, but they kind of let Mr. Lunt just say, well, didn't he just waste all your money?
Yeah.
And then the dad's like, so he's alive, but he was dead and now he's alive. Come celebrate with us or whatever he says. Right. And he's like, and Mr. Lunt's just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
But So, I mean, in a sense, you kind of wish he would at least be like, nah, I'm good, and like walk off.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's not the lesson of the prodigal son. So I liked how they kind of gave it a slightly more like joyful kind of ending in that sense.
Yeah, because you read that, and if you just read the the story of the prodigal son or whatever, it does kind of end on that downer, like oh, the brother was like,
did he leave?
Did he leave? What happened to the brother? Like you just read it, just reading it as written.
Yeah,
you're almost like, oh, that kind of.
That's
like
terrible.
That was exciting about the younger brother, but what about the older brother? Like,
yeah, and I think kids would have gotten kind of caught up on that too.
Right.
So I do think it was a good call.
Yeah.
But it is the only thing that's kind of like, oh well, that's not there.
Right.
But I mean that they still let Darby O'Gill say, "My son was dead, now he's alive. He was lost, now he's found," which is basically exactly what the Bible says.
Right.
So I mean, it's not like it put it into the verse in any kind of inaccuracy.
Right.
They're still able to basically do like a raw quote. So kind of works out.
It was good. So this story is in Luke 15.
Yes. 11 through 31.
Yeah. The story of the prodigal son. And if you've been in church any time at all, you've probably heard this story before. So were there any things reading this through again that kind of stuck out or something you thought, oh, I didn't realize that, or anything like that?
Nothing really super stuck out to me like in the Bible, but I would say like I did like how they chose to make this a story about a farmer, because then it gave that part where the son says, my dad's servants live better than this.
Yeah.
And they say, I can't be his son, but I could ask him if I could work for him. And he's working out how he's going to say what he's going to do. So he's like walking up his driveway and he's like, Father, Mr. O'Gill, And by the time the dad gets there, he yells, I can work.
Right.
And I thought that was sweet because it does say, like in verse 18, I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. And then it says he arose and he came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him, felt compassion, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And I thought that they have Dad Asparagus, Farmer O'Gill. They have him clock Darby way out. Like,
he's pretty far away.
Very wide
He's
shot.
pretty far away.
And I thought that would just being able, like, just the visuals that this whole Wizard of Oz kind of tribute, parody, whatever you would want to call it, gave this story really is what really took me this time. Because, like, trying to read this and watch it at the same time is like those things seen.
Yeah.
Like, in your head, you kind of like, oh, he saw him, he went running. But, like, how far they have him out in the cartoon. And then when they zoom in on him, getting kind of close, and he's been muttering this, like, I can work. And they have his head kind of down.
Right.
To make it appear like he's kind of pondering stuff. I was just like, bro, you just kind of hope it touches your kid's heart as much as it's touching yours.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's one of those things is like, obviously you hear the story all the time, but like you said, that visual of, because I think what they're trying to talk about in the Bible story too is, like when we come back to God, when that prodigal son came back to God or to his dad, like, he didn't like have to go knock, knock, knock. Hey, Dad, are you home? Or like the dad was waiting. And so it was like a daily thing. Like the dad was like waiting outside.
Yeah.
Like not even like looking through the window. Like outside,
waiting.
Like in the cold, in the hot, in the everything, waiting for his son to come home.
Yeah.
And so like I do think that's cool of like, how they show Darby and he's coming home and he is so far away and the dad's already outside.
Yeah.
And he didn't have to, like obviously he was thinking, I'm going to have to go, I'm going to have to knock, I'm going to have to,
Yeah, because he's like working out how to plead his case,
right,
obviously.
Right. But I just think it's cool that like the prodigal son, his dad he's literally just sitting outside waiting.
Yeah.
And then another thing that is the reverse of that is when he leaves, the dad has to sit there and watch him leave.
Yeah.
The whole way.
Yeah, and they do that. They kind of give a shot too, like where they're like, he's like, no, Darby, like, that's your future, and like, come back, and like all these things. And he's like, no, and he leaves. And it does show like the farm getting like further back before it cuts to like where he meets, like, I think he meets Scarecrow first. But yeah, I don't know. It was just really crazy because like in so they do have him picked up in a tornado. They do have him like dropped off, like air quotes, dropped off to a foreign land. But right until he gets about to where the tornado starts going, they do kind of, you can kind of see the farm in the background.
Yeah.
And like, pretty much as soon as he leaves too, like I think they do this twice. I could be wrong. They have, like the dad is like asking the workers, have you seen him? Where is he? And then I know when he comes back, I'm pretty sure when he comes back, they said, we've looked everywhere within 100 miles.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're all been, like, actively searching for this kid.
Right.
And I would say, I know, like, something in the prodigal son that they don't say he ever left, like, his house to go find him. But he was, like, in his area looking for him. And what I thought was kind of neat, what you think is kind of crazy when you think about it is, like, some people would be mad and be like, why didn't the dad sell off everything and go search for his kid like this? Why did he actively look and wait at home? But like, how much better of a lesson and of like, how much more do you know you are loved if you are allowed to make your very big mistake, and you're allowed to make this huge mistake, and you finally gather up the courage to come back because you realize it was a mistake.
Right.
And like, how kind of like much more loved you know, it's like when you see your dad there. Yeah. Like, because like the dad could have came, but the kid hadn't learned its lesson yet. Right. So like, and I think that's something cool. Like, God's gonna let you learn your lesson because sin does have consequences. Right. You know, like this guy asked for his inheritance, he got it, and then he wrecked it all. Like he literally loses like all his money. And I think they call when Darby wants to go to the Wizard of Oz, it's like the funnest place on earth. It's kind of like an amusement park. He asks for his money, and the dad's like, he asked for his piggy bank. Yeah. And the dad's like, that's for your future, for college or whatever. I was thinking, do you know how hard it would be in the Bible for him to get his half of the inheritance worked out? Right. Because that wasn't just money. Yeah. Like there was land. Like, did he have to sell off half of the land?
So it says, like, you know? The younger said to his father, Father, give me my share of the property that's coming to me. Yeah. And then and the next line is, he divided his property between them. Yeah. So like, you know.
That's not just, like, the son probably even had to go sell off some camels or land or something. I don't know.
So then it says, not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country. So it was like, he said, give me this stuff. And that's another thing, you know, that was one thing that I'd written down was that he asked for this, and then it says not many days later he leaves. So he asked for it, but then he still had to stay there and wait for the dad to give it all to him. Yeah. So like he had time to be like, I changed my mind, Dad. Like, you're having to go through a lot of stuff to get all this stuff.
He was hardcore about it.
He was, get me out of here.
Which I mean, I get both sides of the story so much. I have definitely been the older brother that was like, I cannot believe you just let that happen. Right. Being the oldest of 5 kids, I have definitely been the older brother. Yeah.
I think as the church
or other brother. I think it kind of makes it sound like older. Does it say older?
It says his older son was in the field.
Yeah, okay.
As he came and drew near to the house, he heard the music and the dancing. He called one of the servants, asked what these things meant, and he said to him, your brother's come home and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he received him back safe and sound or whatever. But I feel like a lot of times as the church, we act like the older brother a lot. I don't even know if it's necessarily intentional sometimes, but sometimes it probably is.
Probably a little bit.
Because it's just like anytime anybody like, you know, comes back to church, it's been off or whatever, we're so skeptical of it all the time.
Yeah, and we've been kind of walking this in my in our in our family personally, I have one of my siblings that did some really stupid stuff, kind of wrecked their inheritance, if you will. And then they've came back, and you're like, you're like waiting. You're like waiting for the other shoe to drop. But then you see signs. It's like, oh no, this is real.
Yeah.
And so then you start being like, oh, let's be celebratory.
Right.
Like, woohoo, this is real now.
Right.
But you do, like, and it's just so, some of those things is, I think, just ingrained in us, because I think we've somehow taught ourselves everything is earned.
Yeah.
Which I think is something really great about this story in particular. That younger son did not earn a darn thing. By the end of this movie, I mean, Lord knows how hard that kid was working. Maybe he was a good worker.
Yeah.
It kind of makes it appear like he wasn't.
Yeah.
Or at least he tried it once and he was like, I'm else. But he asked for his share way before his time.
Mm-hmm.
Goes and wrecks all of it. And it wasn't until he was down eating with like the slump with the pigs, which Jews would have considered pigs unclean.
Right.
And so he was like super unclean at this point. And the fact that the dad came and like hugged him and kissed him would mean like the dad just became unclean too.
Right.
Like everything about when you really break down the prodigal son is just wild, because it's kind of like the law and like the Pharisees and like this higher standard, and adding even more, the Pharisees and like that council added even more laws eventually to help keep the main laws.
Right.
And it was just a lot. Like you could see them in their heads. If they've heard this story, they have kept every law. I don't do this. I don't do that.
Yeah.
And Jesus being like, not like, no, like we want to be like the dad that came unclean for his kid.
Right.
And then gave the kid a celebration because he's back. He's alive. He's back.
Yeah.
And I just like, every time I read it, I almost like cry a little. Because you just feel it more and more as you get older.
Yeah, there's a song, and I don't know who it's by, but it says something along the lines of like, something around like when you come to Jesus, like he doesn't make you take your shoes off. Like, you know, something people, you go to somebody's house and they're like, hey, take your shoes off before you come in here or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, okay, God doesn't make you take your shoes off. Like, he just wants you to come in. Yeah. And so, like, talking about the dad thing is like, the dad risked himself becoming, quote, unclean. Yeah. To be like, I'm glad my son is home. Get in here. Yeah. Like, whatever. And then he goes even further because he doesn't just say, you know, hey, my son's back, I'm going to hug him and kiss him or whatever. But he says, bring me the best robe, put a ring on his hand, shoes on his feet, you know, bring the fattened calf, kill it, let's eat and celebrate. For my son was dead, he's alive again. He's lost and now found. And they begin to celebrate. And then right after that is the older brother gets real skeptical of
you know, he probably saw people leaving the fields. Like slowly, one by one. Where did all my helpers go?
Where y'all going? Hey,
and then hearing like ruckus far out.
Right. What's that music?
Could you imagine just being like really deep and
What's that music over from the house? Oh, your brother's home.
Heyo.
He loves Jay-Z. We're pumping some Jay-Z in here.
It's like, and the DJ song. It's like the Jay-Z song was on. You know.
Party in the USA.
I feel like that sometimes you laugh because I feel bad. Sometimes I feel bad because I'll put like super modern jokes into the Bible, but you feel like, no, he was definitely thinking like, where is that lyre music?
Yeah.
What is happening here?
Yeah.
And you know, and a lot of
we don't have a harp.
Right? And like a lot of the songs back then would have been probably like Psalms.
Yeah.
Like literal like scriptures. Like, so it's just like, this is not synagogue time. Like, what is happening?
Right.
Like, it would just be, overall, would just be really wild.
That's what always kills me about, like, you know, when, like, this has nothing to do with anything, but, like, the whole, like, you know, when Beethoven was, like, making music or whatever, was it like, bro, Beethoven's new song just dropped. Let's go listen to this new Beethoven song.
I think about that all the time.
It's like the nursery rhymes where like, dude, have you heard Mary Had a Little Lamb?
Right?
What is that song?
Or like the 12 Days of Christmas.
Yeah. That's the song of our generation or whatever. Like,
like how did these songs go viral?
Yeah.
Pre social media, was it like And then there is certain nursery rhymes that have different versions. So is that why there's different versions? Because someone's like, no. It says pocket full of posy. And they're like, no. It says like pocket full of ashes. No, that's the other line.
Right. Or the London Bridge is falling. Yeah, those are dark though. Some of those are like,
I know.
They have weird meanings.
Dude, you want to get freaked out? You Google original meanings of Mother Goose stories, and you're like, why? It's like the when the bough breaks, the cradle will fall, and down will come baby.
Yeah.
Like, bro, I actually changed the words of that song once because I realized I was basically saying that a baby died trying to get my kid to go to sleep.
Yeah, like, wasn't the Edgar Allan Poe wrote this kind of song? Like, anyway, it just kills. That's what's always funny to me, though, is like, how did, like, Beethoven just wrote this music down? Wasn't he, like, blind or one of them, or Bach, or one of them was, like, blind or
Beethoven was deaf, so that's actually really
How did he know it was
about.
Good? It was just like...
I mean, he obviously could feel the vibrations and stuff, but that would just be crazy. I think he got sick and lost the hearing in one of his ears or something.
I think you're right. I think maybe.
Yeah, not crazy.
That's weird. Anyway.
But so I mean, tangent, but this is what I think about when I'm reading these and when I'm watching these, because I'm trying to focus on, is this like the Bible, but also, is this like the Wizard of Oz?
Right.
Because they have all these things like that I'm trying to clock and I'm writing down, and I'm trying to make all these notes, and then I'll get this like, well, how in the world how did the son really know there was a celebration other than none of his workers were there?
Right.
And did he hear some distant music in the background? Like, what the heck?
Well, that's the thing about all these that part of the reason why Veggie Tales is so good, or like The Chosen or things like that, is, at least for my brain, is it, especially because you hear these stories since you're 1 day old.
Yeah.
And like now you see, like, someone presents them to you, whether it's in like this Veggie Tales or The Chosen or any kind of Christian media like that, and you're like, these were just real people. Like, Jesus was just telling a real story about something that could have happened.
Yeah. And they just like, and it just, I don't know, the visual that it gives you when you realize it's not, because we always hear these stories from a Sunday school teacher or a preacher,
right?
Which in most cases is an adult standing above you. Not that looking down on you, but they're like looking down on you.
Right.
Or like, some of the elementary Sunday school teachers will like sit with their kids and read it.
Right.
But it's always like an adult giving you the info.
Right.
And you having to be like, yeah, I received that. But when you see it visually and you realize, like, especially with like, that's one of the things I really like about The Chosen too, is like how it shows like Jesus would be telling these stories and like people would just kind of gather around.
Yeah.
Like you see, like they're just chilling under a tree.
Right.
And like they're all like on the same level. They're all like trying to learn the same thing.
Right.
And I think that is something that's so great about Veggie Tales, Superbook, even this. There's an allegories show that's really cute. It's called like Owl, like OWL, allegories. Oh. But I always say allegories because I can't say the allegories very well.
That's
but
impossible.
Allegories.
That's impossible.
Which allegories are kind of like parables in a sense.
Right.
So it's kind of like, but those type of shows, like when you see it play out, when you see Junior Asparagus going, I can work, you like want to cry.
Yeah.
Like, because you're just like, oh my gosh, like I see it now.
Right. Well, it's more than just, words you read on a paper. You see, those were actual people. I mean, obviously these are vegetables, but like these are actual people. Like this actually happened. And so when you put it as like, okay, this was a real story. Jesus was telling a real story.
Yeah.
Like in real life, he was telling this story. And
people in that audience were going, I'm the prodigal. And the other people are going, I'm the older kid.
Exactly.
And then maybe even the dads were like, oh my gosh, I would do that for my dad.
Right.
I mean, for my kids.
Right.
Like, there's so much of it. But they go, in one thing, and doing this like the Wizard of Oz, it's really funny because on the countertop, Larry says, that's a really short story. We have a whole DVD to fill. and Bob says, not if you tell it this way. And then he goes, the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, or whatever he says.
Yeah.
I think he just says the Wizard of Oz, honestly, and I think it says Wonderful Wizard like on the DVD. But anyway, and then Larry goes, ooh, and they kind of twinkle into like showing the farm and all this.
Yeah.
So it was really great because in the verses, you're just kind of, it's really very straightforward. He came, he asked for his money, a few days later he left. He immediately went, and then it's like he went out and he lost all of it. And he found himself like eating with pigs. And then he's like, oh, my dad's servants live better than this. I'll go home. And although it's only like 15 verses.
Yeah.
Because or like, I don't know, maybe a little more than that. Was it 11?
11 to 31.
Yeah,
so
like 20 verses. And like, so in most like plays and stuff, when you're learning about like speeches and plays and things, the general rule is a page of dialogue equals about a minute. So this would only, like, in theory, this story only takes 2 to 3, would only take maybe 5 minutes.
Right.
Maybe to tell.
Yeah.
Right? So that, and so the way, like, they were like, okay, well, we got to fill this in. So then they build a whole farm. They build, like, there's this bully that says, that's always teasing Darby about not getting to do what he wants to do. So he says, Darby says, my dad loves me. We just can't afford it or whatever. Or something whenever they're talking about going to the Wizard of Oz place. And then the bully guy says, love has his limits. Do something he doesn't want you to do and do something that you want to do and see how far his love goes.
Yeah.
And it's just so they just keep dropping those little nuggets like that in the whole show where it's like pressing this narrative of watching the kid become a little more selfish.
Yeah.
And then he goes, oh, Dad, I want to go to this place. I want my money. Oh, I'm sorry. That's for your college and all this. And then he's like considering it, but then like farm equipment breaks down.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to have to, now we're going to have to harvest it all by hand. Oh, see, now I can't. I've got to do this. I'm busy. I can't take you. So he runs away. And it's like stuff like this that's just silly because, honestly, you don't really need it. But at the same time, it's building up so much pressure. So when he does waste all his money, and then, like, they take the time to stop and meet the scarecrow. Mm-hmm. And then that's really funny. He asked if we have any magazines other than like Bird Digest or something. It's really funny. He gets, when he lands his, he goes, a tornado's coming and he goes to, to-do or whatever they say.
Uh-huh.
He said to-do. He was like, quick, what do you do when a tornado's coming? And the little pig goes into the ditch and like ducks down, which is what you're told to do. Uh-huh. And he goes, hey, get out of that ditch and help me figure out something. And then goes, high ground. And they go literally into like an RV, which is like on a hill.
Yeah.
Which is like the opposite of helpful. And it's just these little things like this that fill in all the time. But by the end of it, when he lands in, they do a whole thing where he meets like munchkins, but they call them like munchies. Mm-hmm. And he meets Madame Blueberry plays Splenda, the sweet but non-fattening fairy or something like that. And he's meeting all these things, and they have great songs about like killing off the bad guys, like Machine.
Yeah.
Like they have all these things, and they meet like all these characters, and then they get they go to the Scarecrow, they go to the Tin Man, they go to the Lion, and then he's talking about being hungry, and they all have reasons why they want to go to this place, but they don't have any money, and so he's like, oh, I'll pay for it. And by the time they get to like the Lion, he's hungry, and they're like, this wood's full of squirrels, can't eat them, children's film.
Yeah.
So there's like all these jokes like that, and it's like even when they meet the Tin Man, he says boiled spam, and he's like, he's like, I've read about guys like this or whatever. It's like serial killer jokes. And it's just things like this is so dumb. But they had to build up so much. So when he does get there, he's done what he's always wanted to do. He runs out of money, and he starts to realize it was like, for what? Like an hour of fun? That he's like, oh no. And it slowly, you can just see it. It just builds, and like explodes. And then you see him kind of working through what he's going to do next. What am I going to do next? What do we do next? And I really liked how that served. The Wizard of Oz really did serve this story so well.
Yeah.
Because, you could have had 2 brothers on a farm and one leave. And then and follow him doing Lord knows what. Because like in the Bible, they make it sound like it was like prostitutes and gambling.
It says he squandered his property in reckless living.
It's bad. Like it looks like really trashy stuff probably went down. And he probably did spend his money just on random crap. Because I do know like if you... Like how many movies have been made where somebody comes into a bunch of money and then all of a sudden have lots of friends.
Right.
Quote, friends. But then when they lose all the money, all the quote friends are gone.
Right.
But maybe like the one that was his friend the whole time. Like that
I've
vibe.
been here all along, John.
Yeah.
What?
Right? And it's just like they kind of pull like that kind of whole thing and he gets sent back home. It's the whole thing. But it's like, I think it served it so well. And it just showed like kids watch this and they think of the Wizard of Oz if their parents have shown them that, which most kids probably have seen. But how nice is it that they if you read them the Prodigal Son, they would still feel that.
Yeah.
They would feel that urgency of him needing to get back. And the fact that and like on the countertop when they're talking about the verse, it was 1 John 3:1 or something is the countertop verse, and it's basically that
I've got it right here. It says, how great is the love that the Father's lavished on us, that we should be called children of God.
How great is that verse?
So great.
So great. And this is why this episode is so good. You can't show Jesus. Jesus can't be telling this story. He can't be a veggie.
Right.
So they do the Wizard of Oz, but they put that verse.
Yeah.
How much love does how much love does God give you?
Yeah.
And he's like, and like Larry's like, what does this have to do with us? And Bob is like, because it's saying, no matter where you do, no matter where you go, like God's love outlasts that.
Yeah.
And he will always, and he says, and he will always come running up to you to give you the biggest hug and never stop hugging.
Yeah.
Which sounds so dumb as an adult, but could you imagine a kid thinking they've done something terrible?
Yeah.
Because the whole bit is that Larry broke one of his dad's special trinkets.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I don't think my dad will ever forgive me. There's no way Dad will ever forgive me. And the answer is God's love outruns that.
Right.
And I'm just like,
yeah.
This one is a very, very deep comparatively to some of the others.
It's very
honestly.
deep. It's very like we talked earlier. Talked about how moving almost that it is about like, I mean, obviously, probably just the music and stuff they have behind it helps.
Yeah, it is a really good one with music.
But just like that idea of like everybody makes mistakes sometimes. The great theologian Miley Cyrus once said that. But who's Miley? No, good Miley Cyrus. Sorry, kids, you don't know good Miley Cyrus. But yeah, it's like that God's love doesn't have any limits. It doesn't have any. Like you said, like if you go this far, it's going to go even farther than that. Yeah. And I just really think that's good because, especially like when we talk about the older brother, is like, we tend to think of it as like, especially when we act like the older brother of like, oh, well, they were just doing this 3 weeks ago. I just saw them do this or go there or say this or be with this particular group of people a month ago or whatever. And now they're back here and they
want to lead a worship song.
They want to lead a worship song. They want to be on stage. They want to,
should we trust this person around our people?
Oh, they volunteered to pray or whatever. And we just get so skeptical. But it's like, at one point in time, we were the younger brother. Yeah. And, God.
Yeah, and he says, come celebrate with us.
Yeah.
So he was never left out.
Yeah, he wasn't saying, hey, you go over there when we need to celebrate you, we'll celebrate you.
Yeah,
he said, come on in.
Left out.
And he says, but he was angry and refused to go in. His father came out and he answered his father, "Look, these many years I've served you and never disobeyed your command, yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends." And I think that is so true, especially if you've been in church for a long time.
You feel like you deserve something.
Yeah, you almost feel like you deserve something, or like you'll do a lot of really like stuff right, and then you don't feel like you're getting anything for it. That sounds bad, but like you do all this good stuff, and you're like, I've done all this stuff, and I haven't got this one person come back after doing Lord knows what.
Yeah.
And they get recognized, and the church claps for them, whatever. But it's like, but I've been here the whole time, and I don't, whatever. And so it's easy to get that way.
And I think it's, like I said, it's because we've taught ourselves we earn things.
Yeah.
Like, he obviously was a good worker. He was still in the field.
Yeah.
And I think actually that's part of this story too that gets a little lost is God's love can't be earned through anything we can do. That's why Jesus had to come.
Right.
So if you really think about that, you realize like the inheritance wasn't really ever like the gift.
Yeah.
That was never the point. Like, yes, it was something nice they were going to get.
Yeah.
But the point was the fellowship and the celebration and like the love of the Father.
Right.
And I think it's crazy. I think it's just so crazy how something like watching a Veggie Tales movie can like spark so much in your brain. You're like, oh my gosh, I get it. And I literally I really do like almost every time the dad asparagus gives him a hug and he says he was dead, but now he's alive again bit. I literally like tear up every time.
It's crazy.
And he's like, he says they ordered a bouncy house. One of the things in the Wizard of Oz places, there's a bouncy house you can jump around to and like bonk heads and pass out.
Yeah.
Like it's a joke. And he ordered a bouncy house. The one thing the son specifically mentioned about this place. He's like, I ordered the bouncy house. Yeah. Let's have a party.
Yeah.
And I just think that was very good writing too, because it showed that the dad had always been listening and was wanting to give good gifts to his kid. Right. His love is a good gift. But sometimes you don't, you know what? God knows what we need. Right. He's not going to always give you what you want because he's going to give you what you need.
Yeah.
And he's a good father. He's a great father. And there's another verse somewhere else I meant to look up, but it's worldly parents give good things to their children. Like if you ask if they asked for
right, if you ask for bread, they're not going to give you a snake or whatever, right?
Like how much better is your father's love for you? Yeah. Like this whole episode shows that.
Yeah.
The whole episode. Even the Wizard of Oz is Archibald. And after a while, he goes, when they're, Junior's kind of, Darby's throwing like a fit about, you said we could do what we want. I'm not happy. And like all this. He just he takes off these silly glasses he has on to make him look like someone else. And he just goes, look, I'm just a businessman trying to earn a living. Yeah. There is nothing for you here. Go home.
Yeah.
And I think at some point, when you're out in the world and you've thought you've missed all this stuff, so you go out and you go and find it, there's that moment where it's kind of like the rose tinted glasses come off and you realize there's nothing out here for me. Yeah. I've got to go home. And I think, and that's why that song at the end is, you can, I put on our Facebook pages, that you can always come home. Gets me every time.
Every time.
Because it just says, I actually, I had the lyrics somewhere, but I don't think I have it saved. It might be in my screenshots. I might have lucked out and it actually saved. But it says I'll love you today and I'll love you tomorrow. It's my love is as deep as the sea. And it says, I'll love you in joy and I'll love you in sorrow. You can always come home to me, I think is what the lyrics are. I can't find the screenshot, but isn't that right before the credits roll on a Veggie Tales movie?
Yeah.
I love you in joy. I love you in sorrow. I'm pretty sure is what it says. I think it also says today and tomorrow like that. That's how that rhymes. But then it's you can always come home. You can always come home. You can always come home to me.
Yeah.
And then it's credits. Duh. And I'm just cry every time.
I know.
But could you And like, I don't know, Bob is, what's really funny is they pull a joke where Bob has noise canceling headphones on so he doesn't have to hear the song.
Yeah.
And, but how he talks to Larry about how does this apply to us? Well, it's like God's love can't be outrun and all this. I just think it's just, and he's just like, and he loves you so, and he just keeps saying like, it never ends. There's no matter what, like words like that.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how great were they being very particular about God's love is for like everybody.
Right.
Like just receive it for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I loved it so much because I think it proved they could do New Testament very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they wouldn't have to stick with the Old Testament stories, so they didn't have to worry about not having Jesus.
Yep.
And I think that's why this one is one of my absolute favorites.
So good. So good. Well, you have to tell us in the comments if you've seen this one before and what you liked about it or if we missed anything. What else, Randy?
We didn't really talk about the silly song.
Yeah.
We could throw a little shout out to Monkey.
Monkey.
We'll just do a quick little shout out and say if you have not listened to Monkey from this one,
You got to do it. You haven't lived.
You have not lived. I'll try to put it on the Facebook page.
If it doesn't have a tail,
it's so great.
It's not a monkey.
Even if it has a monkey kind of shape.
And if it doesn't have a tail, it's not a monkey. If it doesn't have a tail, it's not a monkey. It's an ape.
And then at the end, Bob says, Larry, you don't have a tail. I don't have a tail. And Larry says,
I'm not so sure about that, Bob.
And they have the lion tail switching behind Bob when he leaves. Oh,
so
and
good.
they find a monkey, but it's a cow. It's just great.
Because it has a tail.
Because it has a tail.
Beautiful.
So
beautiful,
great.
beautiful.
But just there, and that was it. Just things like that. And like having, like the Mary Poppins in there. They do, and they have like little jokes they let Mr. Lunt sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow as the credit song. And then at the end of it, they say, tell my mom I'll be right here.
I'll be right here.
So I think, it's really good. Your kids are definitely not going to get bored.
Yeah.
Definitely. I 10 out of 10 recommend this movie for the rest of my life.
10 out of 10 recommend.
Such a great one. I love this one so much.
So good. Well, that's episode 5, and we'll be back sometime with episode 6.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I just started laughing because I almost said 7. Because you said 6.
Listen, before we started, Randy counted to 10 on here, and
I can do it, everybody.
She can do it. She's practicing. She's practicing.
All right. Well, God made you special.
And he loves you very much.
No matter what. Goodbye.
Bye.